The crystal wine glasses clinked as my mother set the table for our weekly family dinner. Everything was perfect, as always, the sterling silver polished to a mirror shine, the fresh flowers arranged just so, the appearance of the perfect family carefully maintained. "Pass the salt, Rebecca," my brother Michael said, not bothering to look up from his phone. His designer watch, new, probably worth more than my monthly salary, caught the light as he reached for his water glass. I slid the salt shaker across the mahogany table, noting how my mother's eyes lingered disapprovingly on my simple work clothes. I come straight from my shift at the hospital, still wearing my nurse's scrubs under my jacket. In the Bennett family, appearance was everything, and I had clearly failed that test yet again. "So," my father began, carefully cutting into his steak, "your mother and I have been discussing the family trust. My name is Rebecca Bennett, and at 29, I was about to learn just how conditional family love could be. As you know," he continued, dabbing his mouth with a monogrammed napkin, "the trust is meant to secure the family's future, to protect our legacy." I felt my stomach tighten. Something in his tone, in the way my mother suddenly became very interested in her wine glass, told me what was coming. "We decided to make some changes to the distribution," he said. "Michael needs additional support right now, and as the only son carrying the Bennett name." "You're cutting me out," I said flatly. It wasn't a question. Michael smirked behind his wine glass. "Don't be dramatic, Becca. It's just business." "Business." I set down my fork, the expensive china clinking sharply against the table. "Is that what we're calling your gambling debts now?" "Rebecca," my mother's voice was sharp. "That's quite enough. Your brother is going through a difficult time. He's gone through $3 million in 6 months. I couldn't keep the anger from my voice. And now you're going to give him my share of the trust too. The money would be better used supporting Michael's recovery," my father said smoothly. "Your career provides you with adequate income." The way he said career made it sound like a dirty word. The Bennetts were old money, venture capitalists, and real estate developers. My choice to become a nurse had never sat well with them. "What about my student loans?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. The trust was supposed to help pay those off. My mother waved her hand dismissively. "Surely you can manage those on your own. It's not as though you attended a prestigious school." No, I hadn't gone to Harvard like Michael. I'd chosen a state university with a strong nursing program, working part-time to help cover expenses. The trust was supposed to take care of the rest, a promise my parents had made when I chose my path. "This isn't about my loans," I said, pushing back from the table. "This is about enabling Michael." Again, Michael's face darkened. "Watch yourself, little sister. Remember who you're talking to." "Oh, I know exactly who I'm talking to," I replied. "A spoiled, entitled addict who's never faced a consequence in his life." "That's enough." My father's fist came down on the table, making the crystal shiver. "Rebecca, you will show respect in this house." I stood up, my chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Respect? Like the respect you showed me when you promised to support my education, or like the respect you show Michael by funding his destruction?" "You don't understand," my mother began, but I cut her off. "No, I understand perfectly. I've always understood. Michael gets endless chances, endless support, endless money to waste. And I get this." I gestured at the elegant dining room, the perfect facade hiding so many ugly truths. "Perhaps," my father said coldly, "if you had chosen a more suitable path." "More suitable?" I laughed bitterly. "You mean if I had followed the Bennett family plan? Gone into finance, married someone from your approved list, become another perfect piece in your perfect picture." "Now you're just being childish," Michael sneered. "This is why you were never really one of us." His words hit harder than I wanted to admit, because in a way, he was right. I had never quite fit into the Bennett mold. My mother's constant corrections of my posture, my speech, my choices. My father's thinly veiled disappointment whenever I chose compassion over competition. But what they didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had recently discovered something that would shatter their carefully constructed image forever. It had started 3 weeks ago when I was helping Mrs. Chen, our elderly family housekeeper, clean out some old storage rooms. Behind a shelf of dusty financial records, we'd found a hidden safe. Mrs. Chen had looked at it with recognition, then fear. "Miss Rebecca," she'd whispered, "perhaps we should leave this alone." But I couldn't. That safe held secrets. Secrets my father had tried to bury. Secrets about where the Bennett fortune really came from, about deals made in darkness, about lives destroyed to build our family's legacy. Now, standing in that dining room watching my family discard me like an inconvenient truth, I thought about the USB drive hidden in my apartment, about the documents I'd photographed, the emails I'd recovered, the truth I'd uncovered. "You're right, Michael," I said quietly. "I'm not one of you, and thank God for that." I turned to leave, but my father's voice stopped me. "If you walk out that door, Rebecca, don't expect to be welcomed back." I looked back at them, my mother's perfect posture, my father's stern authority, Michael's smug satisfaction. The perfect family tableau, hiding so much rot beneath. "Don't worry," I said. "I won't be back, but you might want to check the news next week. I hear there's going to be an interesting story about the Bennett family's business practices." The color drained from my father's face. "What did you say?" But I was already walking away, my steps echoing through the marble foyer. Behind me, I could hear Michael's voice rising in panic, my mother's confused questions, my father's sharp commands. Let them panic, I thought. Let them wonder what I knew, what I had found, what I was planning to do with the truth. They had chosen to cut me out of their perfect family picture. Now they would learn just how dangerous an outsider could be. The morning after the family dinner, I woke up to 37 missed calls and a barrage of texts. My father's messages grew increasingly threatening, while my mother's alternated between guilt trips and attempts at manipulation. "Think carefully about what you're doing," my father's latest text read. "Some doors can't be unopened." I made coffee in my small apartment kitchen, so different from the Bennett family mansion with its marble countertops and professional-grade appliances. But this place was mine, earned through my own work, not bought with tainted money. My phone buzzed again. Michael this time. "Whatever you think you know, you don't. Back off now, or you'll regret it." I smiled, thinking about the USB drive safely stored in my locker at the hospital. Michael had always underestimated me, seeing only the little sister who didn't quite fit in. He had no idea how much evidence I'd gathered, how carefully I'd built my case. A knock at my door made me freeze. Through the peephole, I saw Mrs. Chen wringing her hands nervously. "Miss Rebecca," she said when I opened the door, "your father sent men to search my apartment this morning. They were looking for papers, documents." I ushered her inside quickly. "Are you okay? Did they hurt you?" She shook her head, accepting the cup of tea I offered. "No," but she glanced around fearfully. "They're desperate. Mr. Bennett knows whatever you found in that safe is dangerous." "Did they find anything?" "No, I've worked for your family for 30 years. I know how to keep secrets." She reached into her bag, pulling out a worn leather journal. "But there's something else you should see. Something I've kept hidden since your grandfather's death." The journal belonged to my grandfather, William Bennett, the man who had built the family fortune. Its pages were filled with detailed accounts of business deals, private thoughts, and most importantly, confessions. "Your grandfather wrote this in his final years," Mrs. Chen explained. "He wanted to clear his conscience, but your father found out, and she trailed off." "And what?" "Your grandfather's death wasn't from natural causes, Miss Rebecca. Your father made sure the truth died with him. Or so he thought." I sat back, my hands shaking slightly as I processed this new information. "Does my mother know?" Mrs. Chen's expression softened. "Your mother knows only what she chooses to know. It's easier that way." As I read through the journal, a clear picture emerged. The Bennett fortune hadn't been built through smart investments and hard work as I'd been taught. It had been built on fraud, extortion, and worse. My grandfather had documented everything, perhaps hoping for redemption in his final years. My father had buried these secrets, continuing the family's criminal enterprises while maintaining their sterling public image. The evidence I found in the safe was just the tip of the iceberg. "Why are you showing me this now?" I asked Mrs. Chen. She met my gaze steadily. "Because you're different. You see people as people, not as things to be used. Like your grandfather in his final years, you understand the difference between right and wrong." I spent the next few days carefully documenting everything, making copies, securing evidence. I worked my hospital shifts as usual, knowing my family would have people watching me. Sure enough, every time I left my apartment, I spotted the same black SUV following at a discreet distance. My father's security team, no doubt. On Thursday, I met with Sarah Martinez, an investigative reporter who had been trying to expose the Bennett family's corruption for years. We met in a crowded coffee shop, away from my family's usual haunts. "This is incredible," she said, reviewing the evidence I brought. "We've suspected most of this, but could never prove it. With these documents, will it be enough?" I asked. She nodded grimly. "More than enough. The FBI has been building a case against your father for years. This could be the breakthrough they need." That evening, I received an unexpected visitor, my mother. She stood in my doorway, looking out of place in her designer clothes and perfect makeup. "Whatever you think you're doing," she said without preamble, "you need to stop. For the family's sake." "The family's sake?" I repeated. "Or for your sake? How long have you known about what Dad's been doing?" She flinched slightly. "Things aren't that simple, Rebecca. Your father does what he must to protect our position, our legacy." "Legacy." I cut her off. "Is that what we're calling it now? The fraud? The extortion? Grandfather's murder?" The color drained from her face. "What did you say?" "You heard me. I know everything, Mom. About Grandfather, about the real source of our money, about all of it." She sank onto my couch, her perfect posture crumbling. "You don't understand. Your father, he can be dangerous when threatened." "Is that a warning or a threat?" She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real fear in her eyes. "Both? Please, Rebecca, don't do this." But her plea came too late. Sarah's expose was already written, scheduled to run in Sunday's paper. The FBI had copies of everything. There was no stopping what was coming. "I'm sorry, Mom," I said, though I wasn't sure if I meant it. "But someone has to stop this. Someone has to tell the truth." She left shortly after, looking older and more fragile than I'd ever seen her. As I watched her expensive car pull away, I wondered if she would warn my father about what was coming. It didn't matter. The wheels were already in motion. Sunday morning arrived with the weight of inevitability. I sat in my small kitchen, watching the sunrise and waiting for the storm to break. The digital version of Sarah's article would go live at 6 a.m., followed by the print edition hitting newsstands across the city. At exactly 6 o'clock, my phone exploded with notifications. The story was everywhere within minutes. Ben et family empire built on fraud and murder. Whistleblower exposes decades of corruption. Sarah had done a masterful job. The article laid out everything: the fraudulent deals, the extortion, the money laundering, and most devastatingly, the truth about my grandfather's death. Every accusation was backed by documentation, every claim supported by evidence. At 6:15, my father called. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice was deadly quiet. "I exposed the truth," I replied calmly. "Something Grandfather tried to do before you killed him." A sharp intake of breath. "You know nothing about your grandfather." "About what I had to do. To protect the family." I finished. "That's always been your excuse, hasn't it? Every crime, every betrayal, all justified in the name of family." "The FBI is here," he said after a moment. "They have a warrant." "I know. They have everything, Dad. All of it. The offshore accounts, the shell companies, the proof about Grandfather. It's over." He was quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. "Then, your brother is asking for you. He's not handling this well." I thought about Michael probably watching his carefully constructed world crumble around him. Tell him his gambling debts are the least of his worries now. By noon, the Bennett family empire was in freefall. The FBI had raided our offices and the family home. My father and several top executives were in custody. Our company's stock had been suspended from trading after falling 60% in the first hour. Mrs. Chen called to tell me my mother had locked herself in her room, refusing to speak to anyone. Michael had disappeared, though his passport had already been flagged by authorities. I watched it all unfold from my apartment, feeling strangely detached. This was what justice looked like. Messy, painful, but necessary. Around 3 p.m., I got another visitor, Detective James Morgan from the FBI's White-Collar Crime Division. "You've given us a strong case," he said, settling into my living room chair. "But we'll need your testimony to make it stick. Are you prepared for that?" I nodded. "I'll tell everything I know. About all of it." He studied me carefully. "It won't be easy. Your father has powerful friends. And testifying against family. They stopped being my family the moment they chose money over morality." I said firmly. "Besides, I owe it to Grandfather. he tried to make things right in the end. The next few months were a blur of depositions, court appearances, and media scrutiny. Michael was eventually found in Monaco and extradited back to face charges. My mother filed for divorce, claiming ignorance of my father's crimes, though evidence suggested she'd known more than she admitted. The trial was a sensation. Every day, new details emerged about the Bennett family's corruption. Old business partners came forward with their own stories. Former employees testified about years of illegal practices. Through it all, I continued my work at the hospital, finding solace in helping others. My colleagues supported me, creating a shield against the media attention and public scrutiny. 1 year after the article broke, I sat in the courtroom for my father's sentencing. He looked older, diminished in his prison jumpsuit. When given a chance to speak, he turned to face me. "I did everything for this family," he said. "Everything. You've destroyed your legacy, Rebecca. I hope it was worth it." I met his gaze steadily. "No, Dad. I saved our legacy. Grandfather would be proud." The judge sentenced him to 25 years. Michael got 15. The Bennett family empire was dismantled, its assets seized or sold off to repay victims. My mother moved to Europe, unable to face the scandal. She sends carefully worded emails occasionally, still trying to maintain appearances even in disgrace. Mrs. Chen stayed in touch, becoming more of a mother to me than my own ever was. "Your grandfather would be proud," she told me one evening. "You did what he couldn't. You chose truth over power." The Bennett fortune was gone, but something more valuable had been saved: my integrity, my conscience, the truth about who I really was. 2 years later, I stood at my grandfather's grave, placing fresh flowers beside his headstone. The journal he'd left behind, his final confession and attempt at redemption, sat in a safety deposit box, its truth finally told. "I did it, Grandfather," I said softly. "I finished what you started." My phone buzzed. A message from the hospital about a patient needing care. Real work, honest work, the kind that actually helped people instead of exploiting them. As I walked away from the grave, I thought about legacy, not the kind built on money and power, but the kind built on truth and courage. The Bennett name might be tarnished forever, but I had found something more valuable: my own identity, my own path, my own kind of success. My father had been right about one thing: I was never really one of them. And that had turned out to be my greatest strength.